Honorable Setepe, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me, please?
Okay. Let me hear you. I have no question for you. After listening to the three of them, let me hear you.
Thank you very much. And let me try and be as specific as possible. The problem we are talking about actually compounds two problems in revenue administration. The first is transfer pricing, which these same institutions, multinationals and others have engaged in and affects the same real sector that we are talking about. You know, whether you're talking timber, you're talking gold, you're talking petroleum. You know, transfer price is a huge, issue. And before you say, what did we do? Yes, we did a transfer pricing regulations, and training for GRA to tackle transfer pricing. Now, the second area where this is a major issue is that, or reinforces a major issue, is over-invoicing, under-invoicing, which customs has always. And what this does actually is that it serves as a conduit by these smugglers, to, and even regular exporters, when they under-invoice, they deprive the nation of vital foreign exchange. Because what they do is that they under-invoice the value, even where they do declarations, where they do valid declarations, where they may declare gold they are taking out and whatever, but they end up with showing lower values, to customs for the export. And so these are the conventional areas where, besides smuggling, where customs has been focusing. I teach a course which now overlaps this with, and I think both Ben and Doc have mentioned. That is the whole area of illicit financial flows and money laundering. And this is very important because Ghana has come under the watch list of the money laundering and if you remember recently, but there was one that occurred when I was a deputy, and that's how I got involved, with this. And if you recall, it led to a raft of laws, being implemented at the time in conjunction with my colleague Anatete, going to Parliament. The key one being the beneficial ownership, laws, which were included in the Income Tax Act. Subsequent to that, between the time of between 2013 and 2016, before we left office, one of the measures we did, one of the problems we have is that our economy is changing. And we'll come to this same point when we discuss, a revenue strategy. Our economy is changing very fast. Because our tax laws, our customs law was an 85 law amended, variously. Income tax was 2000, VAT was 1998. There was no excise law. You recall that we did, with the cooperation of the minority at the time, and Honorable Akutu and Useche Sambuso, together with the current speaker, we revamped all the tax laws. We revamped all of them to recognize that Ghana is no longer an agrarian economy. We are the financial sector, we have petroleum, we have others. These are some of the concrete. And then we formulated the Revenue Administration Act and GRA itself, and the integration, and segmentation that was done, which should have led to particularly strengthening the large taxpayer unit. Most of the problems we're talking about are problems of the large taxpayer unit. Training, qualification, that is on the revenue side. These are important because, and the course I teach, draws attention of revenue officers. The other person who teaches it, by the way, is Ali Nachia, and another colleague, former colleague, of GRA. It says that customs and GRA in general should not look at the conventional way of managing our entry points. And here, this is where the issue of coordination comes in. Because smuggling is not tied in as we are, with big, money laundering issues, which you mentioned, illicit financial flows, involving huge amounts of money smuggling. And by the way, we are not talking about just gold or the rest, which everybody assesses can be exported. It involves drugs and others. and this is where the money laundering comes from the word laundry. You take your dirty clothes, it comes out and it's clean, And having been on the watch, and we are just getting out of it, and I heard the minister designate mentioned that FATA, FT was about to have issued various reports which might take us off that watch. It is a pain for business, especially formal businesses. That's another dimension, because then their transfers are watched, they are placed under various, constraints, So it's not just a revenue loss issue. It's something which, if we want to be a good way, if we want to be what we want to do, making income and viable, we need to tackle this issue. And these are some of the concrete steps. Two, the coordination involves the Financial Intelligence Center, which I used to work with, and I believe that is where, because you can see from what I'm saying that Bank of Ghana, is involved. The ports and harbors are involved. Customs is involved. And therefore, this is where, we must, widen, and through either the FIC or some coordination body, which was the recommendation that was going from our work on the laws and things to cabinet. Should the effective coordination is required. But coming to, the customs and tax area in particular, as I mentioned, the large taxpayer unit was established, purposely, to gain expertise in this and in areas of tax audit and others which are in the report which I've also reviewed. These are some specific measures, and I'm aware that the Ministry of Finance continues to work on these, areas. Probably we need to, get civil society to contribute, to appreciate, the work that is being done and to make a contribution. The other dimension, work that had been done through the BEPS, base erosion and profit sharing, which the advanced countries put in place, because they are also facing these issues. It's information exchange. And this is where we must be careful what double taxation agreements we sign. Because what is the economic benefit of signing, a double taxation agreement, with countries which I don't want to be specific, don't have, any economic activity in Ghana, at all. Sometimes these are normally tax havens also. And this is why for me, tax haven is not just an Ajapa issue, but tax haven is a big problem for tax administration for a very long time, because it's tax havens that are used, so again, through the transfer pricing and our involvement in the UN Committee of Experts, which Professor Mills of blessed memory is well known, in fact, he is acknowledged to be one of the people who strengthened it, and which are happening to ourselves on, together with the OECD. I think the guidelines for double taxation agreements must be, watched carefully. And some of the agreements we have been signing, lately are agreements which honestly, may be compounding some of these problems that we have. And I think we need to scrutinize not just the fact that, we are set where we know specifically that, they do not have a significant or permanent, operations and residence, their businesses, and we go into this. Right. So these are, areas where, both the international community, which is concerned, the important thing is that the advanced countries themselves are reading from some of these things, and therefore they are willing to cooperate. Institutions like the IMF, World Bank, and other major international organizations have been helping, and we should exploit. Let me end on this segment by saying that I think we need to implement the revenue modernization program for GRE. That is what comes out for me when I read the ISEP report. I see that there's some misunderstanding about why the segmentation, why a large taxpayer office, why a medium taxpayer office, and why a small taxpayer office. There are, and we can discuss this later on. But you see, when you integrate when you integrate the VAT service with the former IRS, you have people who have worked on only income tax for a very long time, and you have people who have worked on only VAT for a very long time. So the next phase, which was to be in the revenue modernization phase 2, just like the gift miss, phase 2, was to offer training. For example, the tax offices in the places where we have small scale mining and others, it's not necessary to check the activity. There are many of them who genuinely want assistance. They want to do the business genuinely, clearly and whatever. So that phase was to train the officers who are the tax offices that are on the ground. The large taxpayer unit will deal with multinationals and the rest, but the training and the IT systems, which was noted, yes, is a major thing. And this is where the GRA IT system actually was piggybacked on the e-government project very early, around 2009, 2010. The GRA needs to have now, under the revenue modernization phase 2, its own robust, robust information exchange. I tell you, in the absence of that, extending the national identification number to everybody would not necessarily resolve the issue, because if you don't use it to gather information, data,
right?
So I think that is the next move. And the first integration should be with customs.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Tekwe, information can be exchanged even within GRA.
Mr. Tekwe, thank you very much. We have spent time talking about the problems, and a couple of you, or almost all of you, have also chipped in what solutions should be. Now, I want us to focus on the solutions, and I'm coming to all of you once again to tell us what the way forward, the solutions should be, so that we don't return here in the next 5 months, 1 year, hear the same sounds and problems being, repeated. This is just 2 journalists sent out of multimedia. Go check on this, and they bring us, this is not anecdotal, evidence of how the money is lost. And some of you are in a position to know how exactly this money is lost. So first, Mr. Tekwe, you've given us a number of solutions. I had asked Theo earlier.
Yes.
It does appear that, bottom line, a major aspect of this is money that the political parties need to finance their campaigns. The Political Parties Act 2000, Act 574, mandates the parties to file their returns and accounts, indicating with the Electoral Commission within 6 months from the 31st of December of each year. They should state the state of their accounts, the sources of funds, paid membership dues, audited accounts, among others. This can be the starting point. Do you know why the Electoral Commission has organized elections, is gone to sleep, and won't hear about them again until 2024 or 25?
Unfortunately, I'm not an electoral commissioner, and I think that we should be coming to the point where we look outside the Electoral Commission for answers. And I know what I'm alluding to. I think it's important that we as an Electoral Commission, some of these questions, why they are not done, because it's in the law. But having said that, compliance is a major issue. In fact, if you read the SF report and the rest, and as a tax administrator, compliance is a major headache. For example, they speak about taking recalcitrant taxpayers to courts and imposing penalties. And so I think it's generally an issue of compliance. And maybe the forces, just like in business, that make sure these things don't happen. And this is where I agree with you that maybe a political class needs to. These things are done in many countries. We are not the only ones who, hold elections. And I believe that, once we have the law, it's down to enforcement. And the institution should be asked to account for why these things are not done.
Okay. Dr. Theo Champong, Mr. Tekwe talks about 2 main problems: transfer pricing, over-invoicing, and under-invoicing. On the top of my head, without much knowledge within the financial issues, How is this done without official complicity in what we see? And over invoicing, under invoicing, is it a case of incompetent officials who we have put at these places who are supposed to ensure that this doesn't happen and is going on?
No, actually, it isn't on the latter point of the officials being incompetent. Sometimes they actually are competent, but they do overlook things. So, I mean, I know of cases, for example, at the port where you have a big problem with bulk cargo that comes in, where like the way bridges are not working and the scanning regime doesn't, really tend to pick up some of the things that are coming in. So anybody could be hiding weapons or arms or be hiding drugs in there, and you never really know. So sometimes the officials, yes, are educated or understand the issues, but other times they just don't have the tools that allows them to really pick things up. In other instances, you tend to see that the declaration, and this is like a classic example where, if you look like at rice imports for argument's sake, the declarations as you have and the volumes, when you corroborate that with other statistical agencies, so like the UN Comtrade Stats, you see a big disparity between rice that we claim to have been imported into Ghana and what these other international agencies are reporting as rice that has been exported from various jurisdictions into Ghana. The point then comes to what Honorable Tekpe was saying about the institutional coordination going forward. I think it's absolutely vital, but it needs to go beyond just the GRAs and the EOCOs and the Financial Intelligence Center. I think to also rope in other stakeholders. So a lot of us within the civil society space have done quite a lot of work in this tax or taxation issues, like on transfer pricing, and we are happy to provide some solutions as well. I think we need also to focus on the borders and the entry points. That's a question of investment, the surveillance system, the technologies that will allow us to detect some of these challenges. And going forward, there's the big question really about taxation of the digital economy and how things are changing as a result. In fact, Minister Tekpe and I think 2 or 3 years ago, if you remember, we were at an ITIC event forum in London, where this was like a big issue. And there were very useful suggestions coming out of that. And one of which I think is the whole issue about the revenue inflows and outflows in 2 or 3 key sectors. So for example, in telecoms, where traditionally we have seen some of these transfer pricing issues, and we need to double up on the auditing requirement in the petroleum sector that I work. There are so many issues there, some of which I cannot speak about on national TV. But, this broader working group that involves the stateside actors, but other, stakeholders, I think we would find some of the solutions to it. In fact, the thing is that most of the solutions are there. They just need to be coordinated, but we are happy to support that going forward.
So
if you permit me just 5 seconds so that our audience would understand very simple terms what we are discussing now. So I go to customs and I want to export 100 times 10, quantity and 10 price. So I should be declaring 1,000, which is what I'll be expected then to repatriate, under the financial laws of the country. So what do I do? With the connivance, as Stu just said, I may declare 1,000, I may even declare it as 800. Or if I declare 1,000, then I reduce the 10 to 8, and therefore the nation is short of 200. If I reduce both the quantity and the price, the nation even loses more. So the invoice, the value on the invoice is being underpriced, and that's where under invoicing. And then it happens the reverse, where over invoicing, I may just also over invoice just as a means of taking money out. So if my focus is to take money out illegally, I may declare that I'm the value I'm taking out is maybe a certain value which is not, and then I go to Bank of Ghana, and that is what I am allowed to take, out of the country after the repatriation based on money which I may have brought in through other illicit means. This is where the connection is. So you now see I may have engaged in, say, smuggling or some other activity, and I want to launder the money, so I go into gold and I want to export, and in that case it's over invoicing. So instead of, and my partner is there, so instead of 10, I declare 15 or 20, and I take more of the money which I'm holding, out because I have the permission to take it out.
Right.
So just
right.
Explain, I hope it's
Thank you, and that was very good an intervention. That's your teacher skills at play at its best. Now, so Theo, I was asking secondly that we are looking to resolve the problems, and we are talking about transfer pricing, that over invoicing and under invoicing, and I asked the question, there certainly will be official complicity. If it is not a question of official complicity, there certainly is a case that we have incompetent people, officials that we have put in charge of the ports and at the GRA to ensure that these things work. If this is admitted, then why have we not done anything in this area to resolve it?
Yeah, sometimes I think the appetite for reform often also isn't there. So I have been involved in talking to people at various channels within the food chain, and they will tell you clearly, look, we want things to be done right. But, if you're scanning a cargo or a good, and somebody at the top is telling you to let this container pass through, because the person probably clearing it is a politically exposed person or has somebody closer at the top. The reality is that, look, you want to safeguard your job. So that middle-level officer or low-level officer will let it, slide through.
Yeah,
So
interestingly, as you make that statement, Ben and Seth are laughing. Yeah, they're amused.
No, but that's the reality. This is the problem that we keep skirting around. We are talking some of the big language, which is good in terms of the reform high level, but we need to translate that also to the low level, and fix the issues along the value chain, because you realize that it is not always that low level official who is involved in the criminality or involved in taking 500 Ghana cedi to allow some goods to pass through.
Yeah.
There are people further up the food chain that are allowing this to happen. And if we don't fix that, we only deal with one part of the problem, but it festers and it breeds a lot of corruption.